At the beginning of this story, we meet a bald man named Francis, who is deeply troubled by his life. He feels utterly alone and neglected, with no one in the world who seems to care for him. Everything seems bleak for him and he has no idea how to make his life any better. But one day something extraordinary happens that completely changes the course of his life. Francis wins a $4.5 million lottery, and with this massive sum of money, he suddenly finds himself without any financial worries. His life, which had once seemed dreary, now appears full of endless possibilities. However, despite the newfound wealth, Francis is uncertain about how to spend the money. He is overwhelmed with choices and doesn't know where to start. One evening, while wandering aimlessly, he ends up at a club, and it is here that he lays his eyes on a woman named Daniela. She is a prostitute working at the club, and something about her captivates him. Francis has been watching her from a distance for some time, but now, with his wealth, he gathers the courage to approach her. His desire to talk to her is more than just curiosity, it is the hope that he can connect with her in a way that transcends their initial interactions. Overwhelmed by his attraction to her, Francis takes a bold step and asks Daniela about her daily earnings. He offers her a deal, one that would change both their lives. He tells her that he has a large sum of money and that he would pay her 100,000 euros to spend not just one night, but an entire month with him. Daniela, taken aback by the substantial amount, agrees to his proposal. However, before agreeing to go with him, Daniela sets a few conditions. She insists that there should be no arguments, no fighting, and most importantly, she wants him to respect her. Francis, eager to ensure that everything goes smoothly, readily agrees to all her terms. With the deal made, they head to Francis's apartment. However, as they are climbing the stairs, something unexpected happens. Francis suddenly feels unwell and his heart begins to race. This leads to him collapsing right there on the stairs. Daniela, realizing that something is seriously wrong, immediately calls a doctor. Francis has a history of heart problems, and his heart rate spiked from the intense emotions he felt when he saw Daniela. After checking him over, the doctor advises him to take it easy and warns him that the stress of such emotions could worsen his condition. The doctor leaves and now Francis and Daniela are completely alone in the apartment. As Daniela looks around the apartment, she begins to feel more at ease, realizing that she might have to take good care of Francis. He had money, but it was clear that he needed her in more ways than just for companionship. Daniela, understanding that their relationship had to be slow and gradual, begins to focus on taking care of him. The two start getting closer, and as they do, Francis finds himself more and more attracted to her, unable to control his emotions. And so, that night, they share an intimate moment, and the two begin a physical relationship. The next morning when Francis wakes up, he finds that Daniela is not in bed with him. He wonders where she is, and to his surprise, he finds her in the kitchen preparing breakfast for him. She behaves like a wife, making sure he's well taken care of. Daniela, aware that Francis has a significant amount of money, decides to impress him further. She tells him that he doesn't need to go to work today and that they should spend the day together. However, Francis refuses to take a day off, stating that he still has responsibilities to attend to. This leads to a small argument between them, and once again Francis's health deteriorates. At this point, Francis calls his family doctor, Dr. Andre, to come and examine him. When Dr. Andre arrives, he is immediately struck by Daniela's beauty. He is mesmerized by her, wondering how such a beautiful woman could be with a man like Francis. Dr. Andre checks Francis's heart and advises him to take care of his health by enjoying his time with Daniela. He leaves, but not before expressing his concerns about Daniela, telling Francis that she is only with him because of his money. Dr. Andre, still unable to shake his curiosity about Daniela, decides to ask her the truth. Daniela admits that she is a prostitute, but she also shares that she wants to turn her life around and start a new chapter with Francis. This honest confession leaves Dr. Andre in disbelief. He warns Francis not to waste his money on her, suggesting that she will leave him once he's no longer useful to her. Despite this, after Daniela's arrival, Francis begins to feel much happier, and his health stabilizes. The two start spending more time together, going on walks and enjoying each other's company. Francis is no longer depressed and for the first time in a long time he feels truly alive. Their relationship seems perfect and everything appears to be going well. Dr. Andre continues to check up on Francis regularly, and during one of these visits, he reveals to the couple that he is in love with a woman who lives nearby. This woman, a former nurse, is suffering from cancer, and Dr. Andre is the one treating her. He spends most of his time with her, wanting to return the favor for saving so many patients' lives. One night, Dr. Andre tells Francis that he believes Daniela is not genuinely in love with him. He claims that she is only staying with him because of his money. He tells Francis that when he becomes old and frail, she will leave him and he will be alone again. This warning deeply unsettles Francis, and that same night he calls Dr. Andre to ask for help, as Daniela suddenly becomes ill and keeps vomiting. When Dr. Andre receives the call, he heads to Francis's house right away. However, as he drives, he begins to realize that he was only imagining the whole situation. Daniela had never been ill, and his feelings for her were just a projection of his emotions. On seeing her beauty, his heart rate spikes and he suffers a heart attack. Tragically, Dr. Andre dies right there, while Francis and Daniela are left alone to continue their relationship. Sometime later, at Dr. Andre's funeral, Francis learns the shocking truth. The nurse Dr. Andre had been obsessing over had passed away 5 years ago. Despite this, Dr. Andre had never been able to forget her. This revelation makes Francis reflect on his own relationship with Daniela. He had grown deeply attached to her, and despite her profession, he had started to love her in a way that was true and deep. He had found happiness with her, and for a while he had felt like he was healthy again. Meanwhile, at work, Francis's colleagues noticed the change in him. He seems happier, more energetic, and less stressed than he had been before. Curious about the shift in his demeanor, they ask him what was going on, and in his excitement, Francis invites them over to his house. He wants them to meet Daniela, to show them that he had found someone who made him happy. However, when they arrive, they find that Daniela is nowhere to be found, and all of Francis's belongings have been removed. She had left him and he is devastated. Feeling humiliated, Francis returns to the club where he first met Daniela. There, he sees her working with a new customer. His heart shatters as he realizes that she had never loved him. She had only been with him under a contract, a transactional arrangement. His hopes are crushed and he understands that she will never come back to him. Despondent, he sits at the bar, drinking away his sorrow. While there, he begins talking about his lottery win to a woman sitting nearby. She overhears him and immediately approaches him, resting her head on his shoulder. This new woman is even younger and more attractive than Daniela, but Francis is not moved. She speaks to him in a manner similar to how Daniela had when they first met, saying that seeing him makes her feel something. The woman even suggests that they go out together. However, Francis remains focused on Daniela. He knows that he still loves her, and no matter how beautiful this new woman is, she could never replace the feelings he has for her. Before making any decisions, Francis goes to Daniela and confesses his love for her. He tells her that he cannot live without her, but Daniela, unmoved, tells him that she cannot stay with him forever because there is someone else in her life. She urges him to go with the younger woman, who she believes will take better care of him. Francis, unwilling to let go, argues with her, and his health starts deteriorating again. Seeing this, Daniela calls a doctor. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Daniela's husband, the owner of the club, who threatens Francis, saying that if he continues to trouble Daniela, he will make sure Francis never bothers her again. The drama continues as Daniela takes Francis home, ensuring that he doesn't get worse on the way. Once at home, a neighbor knocks on their door and confronts Francis, scolding him for bringing young women into his home despite his heart condition. Daniela steps in to defend him, but the neighbor warns Francis that Daniela does not love him and will eventually leave him. Disturbed by this, Francis asks Daniela about it, but she refuses to answer. Eventually, she admits that she doesn't love him but still cares for him. Although this revelation is painful, Francis is comforted by the fact that she cares for him, and he decides to win her heart no matter what. In his desperation, Francis goes to Daniela's husband and offers him a deal. He knows that Daniela's husband has many women who could run the club and help with the business. Daniela's husband pretends to be heartbroken about his wife leaving him, but it is clear that he knows about Francis's newfound wealth and wants to exploit him. This realization helps Francis see the truth, that Daniela, being a prostitute, could never truly love anyone. With a heavy heart, he decides to prioritize his wealth over her. Upon hearing this, Daniela becomes furious because she had believed that Francis truly loved her. Hurt by his decision, she leaves with her husband, but soon regrets her choice. She finds herself missing the love and care that Francis gave her, which her husband never did. This leads to a confrontation between Daniela and her husband, and their marriage begins to crumble. Eventually, Daniela's husband allows her to return to Francis, and she arrives at his apartment, knocking on the door. However, she is not upset when she sees Francis with his neighbor. Instead, she admits that she loves him too and wants to stay with him forever. The bald man agrees and the two begin a new chapter together. A party is held at Francis's apartment to celebrate their newfound happiness, and when his colleagues arrive, they are stunned by Daniela's presence. Just then Daniela's husband shows up, and upon seeing his wife with another man, he storms out, furious. The tension rises as Daniela suddenly disappears, and Francis becomes frantic, searching for her. Eventually he finds her alone with one of his colleagues. Heartbroken, Francis realizes that Daniela will never change, and despite everything he chooses to stay with her. The film concludes with this bittersweet realization.